Legalizing recreational cannabis in 2024 can 3x to 10x Trulieve stock overnight. Here is why you don't want to miss this.
Oof, this is an ouchie. It's the planet. Oof, down 71% on this stock, down $51,000. Ugh. Just done horrible for us over the years. Let's be very clear, stocks in this space have basically been in a bear market for like 3 years. I mean, just brutal bear market for like 3 years for these sorts of stocks. From what I heard, Florida is like the best market to operate in if you're a company that sells this sort of product, from what I heard.
Welcome to Florida, the Sunshine State, where Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be based on. It has, of course, Mickey Mouse's Magic World, the Disney World, which brings a lot of tourists from all over the world, which explains why it has the best cannabis market in the U.S. Medical cannabis is legal in Florida, and in 2024, recreational Mary Jane could follow if voters say yes right now. You know 2024 is an election year in the U.S. The impacts of legalizing recreational cannabis in the Sunshine State, the state's largest medical cannabis producer, Trulieve, says if that happens, the cannabis industry could triple in size in Florida.
That's the math. Look, we have 21 million residents here in the state of Florida, growing all the time, of course, and then 138 million, unique tourist visits a year.
So if you are interested in speculating into Mary Jane space in 2024 before everyone else gets in, my money would bet on the Florida market opportunity first. Trulieve has the largest market share in Florida, so I would buy Trulieve stock. Trulieve, which is bankrolling efforts to legalize cannabis in Florida, is the nation's largest medical cannabis retailer also. If you drive too fast on Highway 27, you'll miss it. On the other side of a steel and barbed wire gate is the largest cannabis growing and processing center in the U.S., more than 1 million square feet under roof, fully half of the size of the exhibit space in the Orange County Convention Center. And it's fully automatic, taking more than 100 varieties of cannabis from seed to cultivation in just 100 days. It's a rare look inside massive flagship growing facility near Tallahassee. You're looking inside the nation's largest legal indoor cannabis cultivation facility in the U.S. Rows and rows of medical cannabis here soon ready for patients' use. A $2 billion Florida industry that Trulieve thinks could become $6 billion with adult legalization. So Trulieve spent $40 million to put recreational cannabis on 2024 ballot. Kim Rivers is the CEO of the company which is spending that $40 million on a ballot initiative to legalize cannabis in Florida for those 21 and older. She's hopeful, if not optimistic, it will happen. Kim, like the 1 million people who signed the petition, are waiting for the Florida Supreme Court. An obvious boom for the company. Kim says it'll mean more jobs and expansion of operations, and for the state, it could be a windfall of new sales tax revenue. Windfall means unexpected piece of good fortune or financial gain. Like it's raining money. California alone is taking in $1 billion per year. However, there are many in the GOP majority against recreational cannabis, including Florida's governor, who said if president, he would not decriminalize it. The court has until April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2024 to make a ruling. If it does go on the ballot, 60% of voters will need to support it for it to pass. While voters wait for the state Supreme Court to rule, the federal government is considering removing cannabis from the list of illegal Schedule I drugs. Now we have U.S. Congressman urges DEA to expedite rescheduling cannabis. Another U.S. Congressman is putting pressure on the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, to follow through on a presidential request regarding cannabis reform. DEA is now conducting its review. Representative Steve Cohen of Tennessee wrote a letter January 4th, 2024, to DEA Administrator Ann Milgram, urging her in the strongest possible way to act expeditiously on the August 29, 2023 Department of Health and Human Services recommendation to reschedule cannabis to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Substances Act. Mary Jane never belonged on Schedule 1, Cohen wrote. Its inclusion resulted in harsh and disproportionate prison sentences, particularly for communities of color. Nearly half of the states have already legalized Mary Jane for recreational use by ballot measure. Biden understands it should be reclassified. He says from 1 to 3. It should be reclassified from 1 to 420. 2024, though, I like to keep things optimistic. Looks like it could be a strong year for this industry, but let's highlight some of the numbers Trulieve posted, including GAAP gross profit of $143 million, 52% gross margin, which is improved to 2%. Sequentially, SG&A expenses of $94 million were lowered by $2 million. EBITDA $74 million, which was 27% of revenue. And speaking of revenue, he reported $275 million, with 96% of that revenue coming from retail sales. So clearly the audience has spoken. They like Trulieve's product. In Kim's own words, in our portfolio, when we think about massive markets for us, where we've got hundreds of stores between Florida and Pennsylvania with adult use to come, it's really pretty exciting. Why does Kim's optimistic about Florida's legalization in her own words? I think it's always good to go back to the medical ballot initiative that passed in Florida with the highest approval rating of any ballot initiative in the history of Florida still to date. And so that initiative passed with over 72% of folks voting in favor. So there's that. I think that the other data point is recent polling showing similar trends as it relates to adult youth. So polling we've done is in the high 60s or at 70%, and that's without any campaigning. So it's not like we've had massive swings as it relates to our voter base. Again, the leadership makeup in Florida over the last, 3 years to 4 years, that really the medical program has taken off, and adoption as it relates to our medical program is really high and continuing to grow. So we look at 1,500 to 2,000 patients week over week, right? It's definitely becoming more normalized, and we look at the attitude of the legislature and how they progressed over the years as it relates to form factors and ease of getting a card in Florida. Allowing telemedicine for renewals, the landscape has definitely incrementally changed and developed over the last several years. Our average patient in Florida is around 50 years old. It is definitely, I'd like to say, that if you go into Trulieve lobby, it's like a microcosm of Florida. You're going to see all walks of life, so I do think that it's set up for a strong result, assuming we can get on the ballot now. Why is Trulieve's revenue not growing right now? In her own words, one of our larger cornerstone markets is in Arizona over the summer. Over 30 days was over 100 degrees, 110 degrees or something. During this time period, it was incredibly hot. We are talking about growing plants, flowers. Certainly, in certain markets, there is price compression. I think it's important to note that, look, we had indicated this previously undertaken, a large inventory wind down initiative for this year, as we brought again our large facility in Florida in particular. Our 75,000 square foot facility online. And so what was interesting to us is that we didn't see consumers trading out of Trulieve. They were just, the entire market was actually shrinking when we actually didn't have inventory in store. So I think that's indicative of really just the position that we have in the market, and super excited about that Jeffco facility continuing to ramp. And I gave a stat on the call that potencies coming out of that facility now are averaging 28%, and our cost is just phenomenal. So, I think there's a lot of skepticism in terms of just what kind of product that was going to produce, and it's going to be a game changer. The elephant in the room, balance sheet. Trulieve will redeem $130 million, the outstanding 99.75% senior secured notes, while she currently have $200 million in cash on hand. What's the plan? In Kim's words, it's important to note that $200 million, and what we said, that we are continuing to generate cash, and that we are generating cash at now an improved rate from our previous quarters, and so we are continuing to make money. We also said two things as it relates to the cash that are important guides for the end of the year in our forecast. We said that we plan to exit the year with at least $100 million of operating cash flow and a minimum of $7 million in free cash flow. So those two facts, along with what I'm telling you in terms of continued cash generation, should, I hope, give everyone comfort that we are in a good spot. And as it relates to the debt retirement, it's due so we could pay it. We paid it. We're going to give $20 million interest with the two moves that we made as it relates to debt reduction. We thought it was a very prudent thing to do for the balance sheet. I think obviously the market has a lot of potential for growth in addition to the 23 million that live in Florida. Plus, what is there, 140 million tourists that come into the state every single year? When you look at this, and if they do approve the adult use, does Florida become overnight the largest Mary Jane market in the world? And she said yes. It's the single largest catalyst she believes that we have on the horizon for the cannabis industry.
Subscribe, like, turn on those notifications.